Hello, my name is Aubrey Keeling, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my ethical problem that I came up with, the solution to the ethical problem, and I would also like to talk to you about ASHA Code of Ethics and evidence-based practice. So I wanted to start out with ASHA Code of Ethics, just to touch base on what it is, as well as the evidence-based practice. So ASHA Code of Ethics are basically a set of professional values that help guide us through our clinical practices. They're based on principles such as accountability, responsibility, and fairness, and they help to protect our reputation within our profession. And it's very important, and we need to make sure that we stay up to date on them because sometimes they are updated. So we need to make sure we are staying on top of that and making sure that we know what changes are being made. That way we can help ourselves in the future when it comes to being fair and being inclusive with our patients. Evidence-based practice is very similar. It involves three things. The first one is the clinical expertise. The second one is evidence. And the third one is the client-patient caregiver perspective. And with all of that, it helps the clinician come to an ethical and reasonable decision as to what services will be taking place with the client, and it also sort of involves the values and interests and needs of that patient. So again, just making sure we know those things, it will help us get through our clinical practices. So, as for the ethical problem, I'm going to state my ethical problem and its solution, and then finish out by telling you what ASHA Code of Ethics I used for this project. In this scenario, we have two main characters named Miss Illicit Change and Miss Phonetics. So, Miss Illicit Change works at Grace Sloan Memorial Hospital and has only been there for a short amount of time. And then you have Miss Phonetics. She also works at Grace Sloan Memorial Hospital, and she's actually worked there for quite some time. So, Miss Illicit Change was coming into work like she usually would on a daily basis, and she sees Miss Phonetics come around the corner with a huge smile on her face and was really excited. Miss Illicit Change and Miss Phonetics start to talk. Miss Illicit Change asks, what's going on? Why are you so excited? Then they decide to go into a separate room. It's a HIPAA-safe environment. They start talking about the session. Miss Phonetics states that her session was supposed to start out by getting to know the patient, getting to know the patient's family that were there with them, and they were supposed to end by doing a barium swallow test because the client has come in with swallowing issues. With that being said, Miss Illicit Change was really confused on why she was super excited that she couldn't even finish out the entire session. Miss Phonetics decides to tell her that she was super excited because she was still getting paid for the barium swallow study, even though it was not taking place. Miss Illicit Change, being new to this hospital, is obviously up to date on all of her ASHA Code of Ethics. She instantly knows that there's something wrong with this immediately. Miss Illicit Change decides to confront her and just asks, "Hey, isn't that against the rules?" And Miss Phonetics says, "Look, you don't have to tell me that. Everybody does it here. It's not that big of a deal." Miss Illicit Change says, "Well, what about the client? He's going to have to pay a lot more money than he could be saving." Miss Phonetics says that it's not a big deal. She should just let it go. After their conversation, Miss Illicit Change was really uncomfortable, as anyone would be. She decides to ponder on it for a few hours, and then by the end of the day, she decides to take it to her supervisor. She wanted to go to the board, however, she thought that would be overstepping. So she immediately just went to her supervisor, sat down with her supervisor, and talked about the situation. Unfortunately, Miss Illicit Change came to the conclusion that the supervisor does the same thing. The supervisor talked to Illicit Change and said not to worry about it. He then lets Illicit Change in on the fact that everybody does it, and that it's not an uncommon thing, and that nobody really speaks about it around here. So with that being said, Illicit Change stands up, thanks him for the conversation, and heads out. She immediately knows she needs to start working somewhere else, but she had to take care of some business before leaving. Miss Illicit Change decided to take it to the board of the hospital. She sat down and talked to them about the situation, talked to them about what the code of ethics was, just in case they didn't know either, and decided to let them know that she was going to resign from her job. The board instantly took care of the situation and informed Illicit Change that they were going to have classes in the hospital every so often over the ASHA Code of Ethics to keep everyone up to date. So with that being said, overall, Miss Phonetics broke ASHA's Code of Ethics 3-letter D. And it states, individuals shall not defraud, scheme to defraud, or engage in any illegal or negligent conduct related to obtaining payment or reimbursement for services, products, research, or grants. So in this situation, Miss Phonetics was getting paid for and writing down on records that she had performed the service of a barium swallow and was getting paid for it, even though that the service did not happen. And she was doing this for her own financial gain. She was committing a crime by billing for services that were not done and falsifying records.